mercifully. And this is the last podcast for this week. It's McCowan, it's Shannon. Are you tired from staying up late? No, you aren't, because you watch every Edmonton game.
I watch every game, period.
Well, you are like an Edmonton homer.
Listen, I have obligations media-wise in Edmonton. I have to do them. I know,
and your pals are there, and so you cheer for them too.
That's not fair. I have lots of pals in Calgary. I have lots of pals in Vancouver.
But you cheer for Edmonton.
I don't cheer for anybody.
It's been quite blatant and obvious through the history of this podcast, nearly 400 episodes.
It's funny because when I'm in Edmonton, people say you love the Flames. When I'm
that's because of your personality. That has nothing to do with anything else, and I can't help that.
Stop it.
We're going to discuss hockey, and appropriately so.
What?
Given last night's.
Did you stay up late?
I did, but not to watch the hockey game.
Oh.
That's another story altogether.
What did you do? What were you doing?
Quiet.
Oh. Where were you? What's going on? How much did it cost?
A lot. DAREN MILLARD will join us from Vegas, and Mike Zeisberger is still in Calgary, right?
Calgary, yep.
And we'll discuss the shenanigans of last night, how the National Hockey League screwed up again, and what is that supposed to mean?
No goal.
No goal. It should have been a goal, but it wasn't. See, now I've endeared myself to all the Calgaryites. And,
Calgarians.
Yeah. Oh. And the Edmontonians hate me.
Well, nothing new.
Well, get in line. Millard, Zeisberger, when we come back after these messages. McCowan and Shannon back with you. Well, the hockey pucks are here. DAREN MILLARD is in Vegas, and Mike Zeisberger, I assume you're in Calgary. Is that right?
Yep.
Attaboy. All right, let's get right to it. I don't want to play around with any crap or, nonsense. Let's.
Well, hold on. What do you mean? We do an hour of crap and nonsense every day.
Well, all right. So, but let's do some focused crap and nonsense today.
Okay, I feel better now.
I am made to understand. Now, I'm not the biggest hockey guy in the world, and I frequently admit this, but did the NHL or did the NHL not tweak the rule on goals scored off a skate? Did they not tweak that rule to apparently make it easier to score if it hits your skate? In other words, if you don't make a kicking motion, if you simply move your skate a little bit and it goes off your skate, is that not supposed to be a goal?
Guys, you're a journalist. Is he burying the lead? Because the guy Connor scored a pretty good goal.
I'm not talking about, I don't want a good goal. There were lots of good goals. I couldn't give a flying fadoo about a good goal. I want to talk about the goal that changed this series.
Connor,
I'm not anti-Edmonton in any way, shape, or form. I'm asking you dimwits a simple question. Is there an answer?
Yes, the rule is supposed to be you can direct it in with your skate, as I understand it. And Darren, you can jump in, or Shanny if I'm wrong. But if it's a kicking, it's deemed to be a kicking motion, then it is waved off, which, according to what was announced in the building last night, was deemed to be a kicking motion.
I did not think it was a kicking motion.
You thought it was?
No, I did not.
You are 100% right. That is a pile of horse poop. That was no kicking motion. Did he turn his skate in order to direct it into the net a little more easily? I'll give you that. Mm-hmm. But that's not the rule anymore, is it?
See, I look at it as a kicking motion as using your toe to kick it in. That's normally how I like.
But that's not always what a kicking motion is.
No, you're right. So
you ever play soccer? It's the side of your foot.
Yeah, and that's why I don't play soccer, because I couldn't figure that out.
That's two things you can't do now: soccer and ride bikes. That's good.
Bikes, exactly. The idea that he kicked it in, well, you can make a case that he brushed his foot towards the puck and then directed it in, but
that's exactly what he did.
I didn't think that it was a distinct kicking motion.
You are correct. And Shannon, you are full of crap. We understand that you have this love affair with the Edmonton Oilers and that you work for them, and anything the Oilers do is okay.
Stop.
Well,
Just stop. You know,
a kicking motion. Can you kick something without bending your knee? Did he bend his knee? Did he make a forward?
Listen, no. The thing is, he didn't have to make a forward motion. What he did do, I think, what he did basically was more instinctive than anything else.
Yeah,
the puck got into his feet, and as he was being knocked down, and as he was skating by the post, and he just his skate just said, "I better do something." And I really believe that that's what happened. And
he put the brakes on so he wouldn't run into the net too.
Yeah, it's a controversial topic. It is going to be tough, but there was a motion towards the puck by his skate. Absolutely.
Bullshit. Is this why Calgary lost? Is this why we're talking about this? Because
it's why they lost this game.
Daryl Sutter didn't think so. B, Michael Backlund, who took the original shot that would have been a goal had it not gone up, whether it was kicked or not, gone in off home and skate, said that is not why they lost the series. So I will go back to, the original point. We're burying the lead here. Calgary was the inferior team who got inferior goaltending. So people in Calgary can bitch and moan all they want all summer. They were not going to win the series the way they were playing and with subpar goaltending. And I think that's the point of this. And you know what, Shanny? The way the goals were going in last night, you can't tell me that they were guaranteed that they were going to win that game, even if that goal counted.
Nobody's saying that. Nobody's saying that. And I don't have a horse in this race. I don't care whether Calgary or Edmonton advances. I couldn't care less. I'm simply saying that was a play that certainly you'd have to concede. At least help to determine the outcome of the game.
Yeah.
All right. And it is a controversial play, and one which the NHL has faced numerous times, hundreds of times probably, and tinkered with to try and clarify whether, what a goal off a skate actually, which is a goal and which isn't a goal. And I think it should have been very clear last night, and that they screwed it up. They meaning the National Hockey League. The decision was made in Toronto, right? Looking at the camera shot.
Yeah, in consultation with the referees.
Yeah, the referee, Eric Furlat and Wes McCauley were involved in it, but, there was lots of discussion with the guys in Toronto, yeah.
Yeah, so there was a referee that was 60, 80, 100 feet away, involved in the decision, right?
There was a referee 20 feet away. There was a referee 60 feet away. There was a guys in Toronto helping out in the decision. Here's you actually bring up a really good point, Bob. And
I bring up a lot of good points.
No, well, it's been a bad week then. What I would say is I do think it's time to make this rule more definitive, and I think they should allow kicking and putting the puck in the net now. And everybody can sit here and say, what about the safety of the player? What about the players are so well protected now that I do think that any time, whether it's a kicking motion or not, I do think that the rule should be changed. And they can do that this summer through the competition committee and through the board of governors, that this rule should be changed so that no matter how you put the puck in the net with your skate, it should count.
Great, Jenny. Maybe in the next round in Edmonton, if Alphonso Davies is there, slap a couple of blades on him. Get him out there.
Well, to my point earlier, I describe a kicking motion as that toe first. Nobody ever kicks a puck toe first. You never do it. You do it with the side of your foot because it's got the most chance of
Except
getting
the goalie, which you are. I mean, what about kick saving a beauty?
Well, nobody does that anymore either. And if you do, you're playing Thursday nights at 10 o'clock at the local rec league rink.
But enough about Glenn Heal.
But so you know what? I know it was controversial. I do think that he turned the blade of his skate to put the puck in the net.
Yes.
Now the problem was that, I think as Mike talked about, the puck was going in anyway. And I think that's as much of a frustration privately for a lot of people in Calgary than anything else.
Well, at the final minute or centimeter, you want to be able to put that puck in the net. And we've seen it over and over during these playoffs of guys taking other guys' goals, but even though they were close to going in. So I don't fault them for that, even though the puck was going to go in. But there should be some leverage to be able to, or some range to be able to make that decision between all involved.
What do you mean by that?
Well, just like if the puck's going in anyway, okay, so he kicked it.
Yeah,
Whatever.
but what's
He
to
didn't
say that
kick it. He turned his skate, which is exactly why I'm bringing up the rule change. Under the old rules, agree or not, under the old rules, that clearly is a goal that's wiped out.
Correct.
He did turn his skate in order to help it go in the net. Now, whether that was because he was trying to stop so he didn't go head on into the net or not, well, I don't know, and that's another story altogether. But the reality is they changed the rule and then seem to adjudicate the play based on the rule they already got rid of.
You see, the rule still says the rule in the rule book hasn't changed, Bob. What they did say at some point during the regular season was that there needed to be a much greater motion in the skate. So that becomes the issue.
That's so typical of the National Hockey League. You know, for how many years did I point out on air that there is no rule in the National Hockey League, in the rule book of the National Hockey League, for goaltenders to wear
a mask?
A mask.
Yeah, I was a listener.
Them close to 10 years to change that rule. 10 years after I talked about it every year on the air, over and over, talked to NHL guys, talked to Bettman, talked to this, talked to that. Took them 10 years to change the freaking rule. So I'm not accepting any apologies or tidbits of innocuousness about this. They have a rule. They changed the rule. They made it known that they were changing the rule, whether it's the interpretation or whether they changed it in the book. And then they screwed up last night. Period. End of story. Now, you want to talk about the game itself? Fine, we can do that. And congratulations to the Edmonton Oilers, who clearly were overall the better team.
Yeah,
you can argue, other than maybe one period, the first period of the series.
Lost in all this is they won 4 straight.
Yeah.
Well, and they came back from a 5-1 deficit in the first game.
4-0, 6-2. 6-2 was the worst deficit.
Well, there you go.
In game 1, they was 6-6 early in the third before they couldn't respond to one goal. Yeah.
Is this a big?
And that's actually that. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mike. That's Michael Backlund last night actually said we should have buried them in the first game. We wouldn't have had a problem the rest of the series.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I just want to put a bow on what we were talking about earlier, and just to end it on this. Keep in mind one thing, Bob. When they do rule changes, this comes after the general managers meet and make recommendations. So you know what? I mean, this is something that the GMs, including Brad Treliving of the Calgary Flames, has to bring up, because they just don't make arbitrary rule changes. The perception last night, yes, that's on the people in Toronto. That's on the referees. But in terms of wording of rules and rule changes, as Shani knows, okay, that's dictated by the general managers, who very often, when it goes against them, bitch about the same rules that they helped implement.
Yeah, and we did actually. We did talk about that, Bob. Remember, we talked about that with Coley when he was on a couple of weeks back.
Oh, I know. We've talked about all this stuff for years and years and years. I mean, Z makes the fundamental error of believing that I think general managers are somehow inherently bright.
Oh, I never said.
And I have no evidence to support that. I never have had. There are a bunch of dum-dums that come through the system, and in hockey, there is a great reluctance to change. We all know that. The best, and I've said this a million times.
Here we go. Here's his line about the NFL. Here we
best league in the world, the most successful league in the world.
Is it, Bob? So what about the year where New Orleans got screwed out of when the Rams went to the Super Bowl, got screwed out of going in because of a non-pass interference call?
I agree.
Shot to the head. And
but what do they do?
So-called great league.
Yeah, but the point I was trying to make before you so rudely interrupted me and continued to.
Yes, and will continue to.
Somebody
At
sounds
the
like
end of
they're either
every
a fan
season-
or they lost money. Somebody that's Zeisberger. He's a fan or he lost money.
No, I just thought that the Saints got screwed out of one play that was obvious and should have had 3 different penalties called on it. So
if you'd allowed me to finish, in no way, shape, or form have I ever said the National Football League is anything close to perfect. What I was about to say was they are certainly not reluctant to adjust the rules after every season if they feel that something is not working. They have the relationship to history. Baseball's as bad as hockey is. Relationship to history, or what we've done for the last 50 years, has no factor in the National Football League. It's one of the few redeeming qualities I can cite for the NFL. But they will make 3, 6, 9, 12 rule changes every season, and they might just be tweaks. And then they'll make rule changes, and if they don't like the result of it, they'll change it back or change it again the following year, and they do it over and over again. And hockey is one of those sports that will not do that. They will not admit to an error. They will not admit that they are wrong, and they won't do anything about this one because they're so afraid right now that we will all relate it to this goal, and therefore the league would have to acknowledge that they made a mistake, and they'll never do that.
I think
ever.
the league's
Millard.
pretty good. I think the league's pretty good at adjusting and changing rules along the way. And
I think since
changing it back.
2004 it has. I think since 2004 it has.
Well, remember toe in the crease, toe out of the crease. They went through all that. Like, that was controversial, but they adjusted that.
Go into Buffalo and mention the Brett Hull goal.
Yeah, I'm going to skip the combine this year. That's happening and go down that. But it is popular. But they adjusted to that. They changed the rules off of that and immediately. And I think that we'll probably see an adjustment on what we saw last night. That was
Mike, we were on to talk about the game and the series, but you got us back talking about the rules.
No, we weren't. We were on to talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about.
No, Mike changed the topic again.
See, there's the name of the show right there. When the John Shannon podcast appears, you can talk about whatever you want.
Isn't that the name on your paycheck, Shanny?
What? There's money. There's money involved here.
All right, let's get to the game. I did not mean to hijack the conversation, but I mean, clearly it was the issue. It was the fundamental issue at the end of that game. I quite frankly am shocked that it's the Edmonton Oilers and not the Calgary Flames moving on, with no disrespect to Edmonton, but they had such a history of failing, even with this group. And Calgary really looked for the vast majority of this season like the much better hockey team. What happened here?
Well,
top line of Edmonton's was way better than the top line of Calgary's.
And I'll revert back to what I said earlier in the show. Jacob Markstrom, who's up for a Vezina trophy, had an .852 save percentage.
Yeah, he was horrible.
And was outplayed by Mike Smith. So, to me, that's number one. Number two, as Darren pointed out, the Flames top line of Tkachuk, Goudreau, and Lindholm had 14 points in the series combined. Leon Draisaitl had 17 points. So one guy, and that's not even McDavid, had more points in the entire top line of the Calgary Flames. And I mean, this is a Calgary Flames team that kind of had the identity of hard forecheck, play on the cycle. I didn't see any of it. And I just think that their top guys didn't show up. It's as simple as that.
Millard?
I absolutely agree. Johnny Gaudreau for the first round, and then that first 4 periods of the series, that's as good as I've ever seen him play.
Yep.
And he's had some good seasons, but he was electric. He was McDavid liked the way he was making plays and throwing off the offense, buying some room and getting the puck to his line mates. I've never seen anything like it. I didn't think he could go to that level. And then all of a sudden it stopped by the whole line, and McDavid and Draisaitl and Kane took over, and then you got some depth by the Oilers, which Calgary didn't supplement. And depth, somebody said they with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins stepping up. I said he's also a first-round pick, a first overall pick. That was the depth player, but it was one-sided, which I didn't see to this level.
By the way, you talked about Draisaitl. We should also mention Draisaitl probably at 80%.
Yeah.
Because we know he does have some sort of a leg injury, whether it's a bruised knee or a bad ankle or something like that. And the other thing is when you talked about depth, the deal to sign Zach Hyman, is just, I was actually shocked on social media last night. There weren't more Maple Leaf fans saying, we should have kept Zach. Zach was what we, with everything that they talked about the Maple Leafs needing in their series against Tampa, Zach Hyman was what they needed.
Yeah.
Well, I talked to Kenny Holland about him before the game last night, and I said, what is there, if anything, that has surprised you about Zach Hyman? Obviously, if you're giving him the type of contract that he got, you understand the commodity that you're getting. Has anything surprised you? Has he exceeded anything? And Kenny, who's, been at the head of some pretty good teams in Detroit, said the one thing that he has seen from Hyman is his day-to-day, shift-to-shift competitiveness. Every single shift. So to your point, Shanny, exactly. What is the one thing that you look at the Leafs and say, what's the element that they're missing? Well, the one that got away.
Yeah. And then and beyond him, you're also seeing the growth and emergence of some of the young Edmonton draft picks. Ryan McLeod is now playing much better. And how much better is he going to be with the experience of these playoffs? And Kailer Yamamoto, I have been a Yamamoto fan all year long. Feisty little guy, works his tail off, always on the puck. He has this innate ability to make simple little passes, not hard passes, but simple little passes for, the Canes and the McDavids and the Draisaitl's of the world just to go into the zone. I don't think he's getting enough credit. So all of a sudden, when we were giving Calgary credit for all the depth they had as this series started, in the end, it was Edmonton had more depth and the forwards. And that to me was, I think, part of the shock, I think, Bob, when you talked about this series that was supposed to go 7.
Well, one of the things that I observe is we have lived our lives believing, and it's, I think, factual. I think we would all agree. When the playoffs come, the game changes, becomes tighter, becomes more physical, becomes lower scoring. Defense wins over offense. Goaltending is critical.
Yeah.
Edmonton has a goaltender that I don't think even they are sure about. We've contemplated all year long whether Edmonton would go out and get somebody like Fleury. That conversation came up. And Mike Smith was okay in this series, but does anybody think he stood on his head?
Oh, no.
It wasn't, in my mind, it wasn't Smith that won this series. It might have been the Calgary goaltender who lost it to some extent. I think that's more accurate. But what's really intriguing is, well, I was just going to say, what's really intriguing to me is Edmonton's pure skill and offense won this series. And name me the last team that won, in my opinion at least, based entirely on their offense and had very little to do with their defense or their goaltending. And it might be the Edmonton Oilers of the
80s. Maybe Pittsburgh. Maybe Mario and Lager together.
I'd have to think about it, but you might be right.
92.
But it isn't very often.
No, you're right. And listen, the other thing is, and people are going to think I'm a little warped on this one. The Draisaitl injury. Yeah, I know. The Draisaitl injury, Jay Woodcroft backed into a good thing, because for the longest time all season long, since he took over, he's been trying to maintain that McDavid does a line, Draisaitl does a line, Nugent Hopkins does a line. But because of at the beginning of the series, Draisaitl's inability to be as mobile as he normally is, play him with McDavid, take advantage of his passing, take advantage of his shooting. So they put Draisaitl and McDavid together more often and double shifted McDavid. And it gave Nugent Hopkins a chance to shine more, but it also put those two guys, Draisaitl and McDavid, together, and it really worked well, obviously. And so it's almost like the injury helped the coach's decision to put them together. And to me, that's he backed into some good fortune with the injury.
I think the series can be summed up in the question of what's the story for the Oilers? Was it the disputed goal? Was it Mike Smith at times playing the other guy? Connor McDavid, Draisaitl with 3 points, or Evander Kane, or Edmonton's maligned defense?
Yeah,
not being a story, which it wasn't a story.
Not as much. There's always a story there, but you're right, not as much. The other thing is, I think the Oilers are fortunate the series ended in 5 because, and Mike, you were there. Evander Kane was on fumes last night. Evander Kane he could barely go up and down the ice, which is one of the reasons why I think they took Kane off that line and put Hyman up there.
Well, he wasn't at the skate yesterday because he just had a kid and was away for that. But I think one of the other things that's kind of a little hidden sidebar to this whole thing. I mean, there was a lot of whining in Edmonton when they brought Duncan Keith in. You know, they thought, this guy's ship has sailed. What's Kenny Holland doing? Let me tell you something. Duncan Keith wasn't brought in to be the Blackhawks Duncan Keith. And being paired up with young Bouchard on the back end, I mean, you just see the confidence coming out of Bouchard. You don't need Duncan Keith as to be your number 1 or number 2. But when you see the influence he can have at a position where you've got some guys that don't have a lot of experience, you can just see Bouchard's confidence just build and build and build. And you know what? I thought Duncan Keith was one of the kind of unsung heroes for the Edmonton Oilers, and it was probably the best that I've seen him play all season.
Out of interest, we got to take a break, but just out of interest, anybody know off the top of their head how the Oilers played the Avalanche over the course of the regular season?
Memory serves me, they lost on a Saturday night at home in a shootout. It was a great game. It was a 1-1 game going to the shootout. It was spectacular. And I think on a Monday night in Denver, I think they split. There was two games on Monday nights, and I think that Calgary won one, or sorry, Edmonton won one, and Colorado won the other on a Nazem Kadri goal at one point. So they were really great games, Bob. They were exciting games.
Yeah, and I'm not dismissing St. Louis yet. You can't, because somebody's got to hit 4, and that hasn't happened yet. But
hey, before we go to break, though,
we're not going to break. I got another question. How do we feel about Edmonton theoretically and Colorado? At the start of these playoffs, if you'd said it was going to get down to that, everybody would have said Colorado. Has Edmonton changed minds?
I think Edmonton's on a game-by-game basis still.
Yeah.
Who's better, Darcy Kemper or Mike Smith?
Game-by-game basis.
Yeah, that's it. In the end, it's going to be the same conversation that started the last series. Yeah. Whose goalie's better? And the irony of this is that 2 years ago, Kenny Holland thought he had signed Jacob Markstrom, and last year he was on the verge of trading for Darcy Kemper when Grubauer signed in Seattle and Joe Sakic swept in and got Kemper out of Arizona. So, but Mike Smith, in the end, it's the Mike Smith thing. Can I just make one point? Because Mike talked about Duncan Keith. So we talk about the Keith acquisition, the Hyman signing, the controversial Kane signing, and one that doesn't get near the attention that should is the Kulak trade at the deadline. Another solid guy. And people were bitching and complaining at Edmonton. They gave up 2 draft picks for Kulak, for a guy who's on an expiring contract, Brett Kulak's been really good. He's been physical. He's done exactly what he's supposed to do. So the tweaking that Ken Holland has done in the last 12 months for this organization has put a lot of this on the table for guys like Draisaitl and McDavid and Nurse to take advantage of to get to the third round.
Is this a win for Edmonton, though? Like getting to the third round, is it a win or is it
huge?
They have to get to a final.
No, I think you take one step at a time, and this is a big step for this this organization. I do anyway. And while I give the general manager the credit that John implied, the coaching change that they made mid-season was, you have to look at that and say they did something right there.
Yeah, no, you're right.
With a coach that has relatively little experience and had no real star power when he took over.
Yeah,
you know,
at the NHL level. Yeah,
at the NHL level, correct.
As the head coach, yeah.
But this was a guy that Holland knew from his days back in Detroit, working for Babcock.
Clearly.
And when they fired Todd McClellan, there was a lot of pressure internally in Edmonton to say, well, we're going to get rid of Woodcroft too. We're going to fire him too. And senior management at the Oilers convinced ownership to say, not we should move Woodcroft to the American League. We should pay him a little bit more to stay in the American League, and we should nurture him. And it's paid off. That decision has paid off for the Edmonton Oilers.
Boy, sure sounds like the manager's fingerprints are all over this from our conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, the managers that going to change that rule this summer, you mean?
Well, the managers, Kenny Holland with the Duncan Keith signing, the Zach trade, Zach Hyman signing, like now the coach, like everything's all over Kenny Holland.
It all kind of fits so far. Yeah. We'll change gears and talk about the other series when we come back after these messages. McCowan, Shannon, Zeisberger, Millard. I was going to say in the room, but we're not in the same room. We're in 4 different rooms in 4 different cities, essentially. Well, 3 different cities.
Is it a rule that you're not allowed to be in the same room as the rest of us?
Yes, it is now. Yeah, yes, it is. Completely. It is a rule.
A completely different topic, but it is intriguing, isn't it? That we all, when this all started 2 years ago or 3 years ago, or whenever the hell COVID kicked in, and we all started using Zoom for everything.
Yeah.
We all lost our minds that this was impossible. This wouldn't work. And now we're never going to go back.
Nope.
This is it. This is it. This is life.
Given your financial acumen, I'm shocked, and maybe you didn't have shares of Zoom.
Well, I didn't, and I can do better than that. I had no concept that a podcast would ever work, ever. And I resisted for, I think Shannon would know, for over a year. Just said, I'm not doing that. That is a waste of time and energy. And here we are.
And it still might be.
Well, this morning it is, but Avalanche Blues, you have to presume this thing is over, really, isn't it?
No way.
Why?
No way.
No.
Well, weren't you guys all? Well, I know Shannon adopted the St. Louis Blues at the beginning of the playoffs for reasons that are, of course, inexplicable. But he does that all the time
because he saw his buddy Gretzky pick them to win the cup.
Did Wayne? Did Keith pick them? Oh, sorry.
He's got other things.
The other one. The other one.
Okay, you other 2 numbskulls. You didn't like Colorado going into this series?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But Bob, there's 2 things in play here. Number one, St. Louis still has the core that they won the cup with, and they're very resilient. When they play north-south and don't try to do the fancy stuff that Colorado does, that's when they're effective. But the other thing is, Colorado has that, what we talked about Edmonton. They can't get past the second round. And they had the chance the other night. I mean, they were up 3-0. Like, put the dagger in there, send them home. Couldn't do it. Can you imagine now if they lose tonight, what's going through their noggins about, here we go again. because you know what? It's not just us saying it. The Avs have talked about getting over that hurdle. So it'll be fascinating. I think that the Avs are a much more talented team. But we've talked about that in some of the matchups of the Toronto Maple Leafs before. It's between the ears that I think is going to be big for them.
But you can't get a better performance than they got the other night. That's where my doubt would start to seep in if I'm Colorado, is our star player was the star player. He did everything right. We did everything right, and we still didn't win. What happens now?
You see, to me, this, the analytics guys are sitting in one corner and the strategists are sitting in the other. And then I don't know how you can, when you measure people like Colton Parayko and Ryan O'Reilly for character, and like Ryan O'Reilly, this guy just amazes me every time, what he brings and how he drags his teammates through the fight every time. And that, to me, that's, and that all comes from, in my mind, what the formula that Craig Berube's instilled in these guys. It's a pretty simple style that the Blues play. Ville Husso, if he can stop the puck, the Blues have a very good chance. You're right. They're not as fast as Colorado. They're not. They may not, but they might be deeper. They might be a deeper team.
Yeah. How many would they have? 20 goal scorers?
20 goal scorers. Yeah. Yeah. And the other guy who I've never thought was as good as everybody in the organization thought he was, the third period that Justin Falk had the other night, and the plays that he made on so many different levels, not just scoring a goal or setting up a goal, but the play at the blue line, the play with Landeskog at center ice with the empty net. That was a period for the ages for me, for Justin Falk. And that's, again, that's what wins series. That's what wins games. Those types of character performances. And so I have no doubt that we're going to a seventh game in this series. No doubt we're going to a seventh game.
And the other thing, Bob, and you referenced this earlier about skill and the Avs defense, and look at Cale Makar. I mean, he's worth the price of admission, along with McKinnon, to watch every night. But you saw in those close goals in the third period for the St. Louis Blues, who were jamming the front of the net, Cale Makar was letting the Blues forwards, or even Falk, get behind him, right on the edge of the goaltending crease. So as great as this kid is, there are still those playoff moments where you have to defend, where some of these high-skilled guys like Makar, like Taves, are having issues close in where greasy goals are scored. And let's face it, St. Louis, that plays into St. Louis's hands, because they're not getting these, goals like McKinnon scored his third one the other night, where you're going to get 10 from the judge for artistic merit. They get greasy goals, and unless you plant them on their butts when they're around the goal crease, you're going to have an issue with that.
Well, who do we like?
I still like Colorado.
Yeah, me too.
Saying all that, I still like Colorado.
Yeah. Well, and John's not going to admit, even if he does, because he picked.
No. I've already said I think this is going to be a gut wrenching Blues victory in Game 6. Game 7's a coin toss, guys. You get to a Game 7. Both of you know this. You get to a Game 7. It doesn't matter where they play it. They could play it on Mars. There's going to be something special about it for both teams.
Does Ville Husso have two big games in him?
I will say this, Bob. You mentioned something earlier about, Colorado potentially playing Edmonton. Okay, if we're looking at big picture, I think that series, the big winners would be the fans, okay? Because we talk about how some of the stars can never get to the final or the semifinal, the best pure raw skill offensive players. Well, if you have Edmonton and Colorado playing, you are going to have
star power
with McDavid, Draisaitl, Kane, Landeskog, McKinnon, Makar, Rantanen, although I know he's struggled. We got to put Calgary in the mix there, do we not? I mean, who doesn't want to see that?
Oh, I don't disagree with you. It's star power. There's no doubt about it, and we don't get it that often. We're limited.
Our friends at TNT would love that series. I know that, wouldn't they? That's what in the United States with the new TV contracts. Even the Calgary Edmonton series is rated well in the U.S. They've been very happy with the numbers.
It was on TNT that you saw Wayne Gretzky pick the Blues, and that's why you picked them.
I don't recall that, but that's okay.
McDavid and McKinnon.
Maybe I picked the Blues, and Wayne followed me and watched the podcast.
You know what, Shanny? That's a more logical line of thinking. I agree with that.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Stop.
I like Kane and Kadri as a headline matchup too. Not just the two superstars.
Rangers Carolina, is that over?
In Game 7.
It's a home ice. It's home ice. Carolina can't win on the road. They're going to win at home. They have home ice. That's why you'll fight for home ice all season long, I guess.
I want to just ask for, having watched Carolina, one thing that I've always been impressed with is their speed, puck pursuit, and forecheck. I haven't seen that, not to the extent that I've seen it for the last couple of years, and it's kind of been surprising.
I still like their game. I still like their depth and the way they play. I'm baffled by this whole road thing. It's just bizarre.
Yeah, I mean,
I can't explain
it. The thing for me is that the Rangers and I mean, listen, the Rangers are comparable. The Rangers aren't much different. They haven't been able to win in Carolina either, and they seem to play at a different style at the Garden. And you guys know how electric it is to play at the Garden. I mean, it is a special place. But I just see the Rangers having their star powers finally showing up. It showed up more in those games at MSG. Kreider, Zibanejad. Panarin still has to get on his horse. And then when you think about it, I mean, Shesterkin versus Ranta. Shesterkin should be winning that every time, shouldn't he?
Well, I like Ranta. Ranta's a great goaltender. Yeah. It's just whether he can stay healthy period to period, never mind game to game or week to week. And right now he's healthy. So I think that matchup's much closer than the lopsidedness that it appears.
Okay, I'm going to ask a question that Bob asked me yesterday. Let's say Freddie's healthy for Game 7 and the Rangers win at home on Saturday night. You play Freddie or you go with Ranta?
Ranta. Yeah.
I would too. Sure, it is a tough spot, but I mean, look what Pittsburgh put Tristan Jarry in that spot.
Yeah.
Well, what you're saying
certainly wouldn't be the first time that's happened.
No, but Ranta hasn't been an issue to me in this entire playoff series. So if he has one bad game in Game 6, well, that's 1 out of 2 playoff series. I just don't see you giving the guy the hook for something like that.
And I assume you guys will say that you go with Ranta because he deserves to play in Game 7. He's played well enough.
Sure, he does. Absolutely.
If you're a Toronto Maple Leaf fan, of course, you'd say, well, I'm not going to put Anderson in a playoff game under any circumstance. I'd hope for him to be hurt in the playoffs. He can play his ass off during the regular season. That's great. But as soon as the playoffs come, ding, the light goes on, or ding, the light goes off, more likely.
How many series they won since he left or hasn't played?
I'm sorry, say again?
How many series have the Leafs won since Freddie wasn't their starting goaltender?
Well, I'll tell you what's really sad is
played
that
one, I think, haven't they?
2.
One? Oh, they played 2. Okay. Well, no, he was there last year.
Yeah.
I said as he was not their starting goaltender in the playoffs.
Right. Okay. All right. Okay.
Well, what is really sad to me is that you make your living following the National Hockey League and feel compelled to ask 3 other people that question.
Who are you talking to?
Zeisberger.
Well,
I didn't ask it. Shanny asked it.
I asked the question.
You just asked the question.
I just want to do a follow-up to this. How many series did they win with Freddie?
None.
Yeah.
None.
So,
well, and how many have they won without him?
None.
Same number.
It's consistent.
Well,
How
it's
do we
the
end up
relevance
talking
of the
about
question.
Leafs? Zeiss?
What's that?
How do we end up talking about the Leafs out of all this?
Well, because Jenny
and I try to stick handle away from it, and Bob always circles back to the Leafs.
But there are Leaf tentacles everywhere. I mean, look what Kadri's done in Denver. Look what Hyman's done in Edmonton. Yes. Tyler Bozak, who played 7 minutes, he was the overtime hero for St. Louis. Freddie Anderson might play, might not play. The only team that doesn't have any Maple Leaf real input are the New York Rangers.
Well, thank you for that update of useless information. And the truth of the matter is we were talking about Anderson in Carolina, and that's how the connection with the Toronto Maple Leafs came out of Zeisberger. And if you paid closer attention to this program, you would have known that. Now, let's get to the team that may need to take skating lessons before they play again, Tampa Bay. There is lots of evidence to support the theory that it almost doesn't matter what happens next. Tampa Bay is going to the final and is probably going to win the Stanley Cup. Agreed or not?
Yeah. Just based on the goaltending. Kevin Woodley from In Goal Mag, who does a lot of consulting with people, pointed out to me last week that your best chance to beat Vasilevsky is in the first round. Columbus did it when he was vulnerable. He was human the first round the last 2 years. And then he gets better and better and better. And he said everybody may have missed their opportunity already. Like he's trending towards that.
So Darren, think back to Game 6, Leafs Tampa, and the Leafs score those 2 late goals, and the one that put them up 3-2. I mean, he totally whiffed on it. Tavares takes the shot, he kind of waves at it, goes off him, goes into the net. Then think of what happened after that. He shuts them out in the third period. He shuts them out in overtime. He gives up 1 goal in Game 7. And what was the ridiculous amount? Was it something like he only gave up 3 goals in 4 games?
Yes.
So put that body of work together, and that goes exactly to your point. I mean, and again, I'll use the phrase, you got to put the dagger into somebody like that when you have the chance, because they get better and better. And it's just like the entire Tampa team.
Well, and you suspect that they will play a more traditional type of defensive oriented hockey game in the playoffs.
I think their great strength, Bob, is that they can play any way you want.
Yeah.
Well,
you want to run and gun? You want to run and gun? We'll run and gun. You want to play defense first? Defense first. You want to play a 1-3-1? We'll play a 1-3-1. We'll do anything you want, anytime, any place, and we can still beat you.
Well, I just wonder whether we're going to we've underrated this team and asterisk them because of the COVID situation, or maybe it's just in hockey you got to win 3 in order to be acknowledged as a great team. But they've proven a lot to me in these 2 series.
Oof.
The tough win over the Leafs and then the sweep. That's pretty impressive.
The Tampa Bay Lightning have won 10 consecutive series.
Right.
The Montreal Canadiens in the 50s won 5 straight Stanley Cups, winning 10 consecutive series.
There you go.
Like just a little. I know it's not the same number of cups, but 10 consecutive series is pretty amazing.
The other thing is, what is it now? They've gone. They're 16-0 after a loss.
Yeah. I
mean, that's incredible. They haven't lost 2 consecutive games. And I remember John Cooper got asked that in the first round. He goes, well, that's, he goes, I don't know what the exact math is, but I'm betting that gives you good odds of winning a cup. So that, and the other thing is, guys, the Tampa Bay Lightning are missing the leading goal scorer of the last 2 playoffs in Braden Point. I believe he's had 30 goals over the last 2 playoff series. Have you ever heard one peep out of John Cooper or that team? Well, we're missing Braden Point. I mean, I think in Game 2 in Florida, the line going back and forth into the trainer's room was incredible. One guy blocks a shot and he hobbles into the dressing room. And when that guy comes back, another guy has a puck in the face and he goes back. They never bitch. They never complain. And that is, I just think, an insight to the mindset.
Have they lost since Point's injury?
Nope.
Haven't lost a game.
I don't think they have. So it's tough to whine when you. It's tough to whine when you win.
Yeah, but you know what, Shanny? They played an entire playoff series where Steven Stamkos played 3 shifts, and one of them was a hell of a shift.
Yeah.
You're
right. You're right.
It's great. It's a great storyline. You mentioned Stamkos in the bubble didn't play. Kucherov didn't play at all during the regular season in the second cup, and now points out for the third cup. Like they handicap themselves and still get by it,
and they still win. And I'll bet on them until I'm proven wrong. Guys, as enjoyable as this has been, more for you than me.
Please.
That must be what the script says, because I don't think it didn't come across as you were enjoying this.
It wasn't really heart. It wasn't heartfelt at all.
No,
it never does, Darren.
Heartfelt at all.
No.
All right, all of you get lost then. We thank you for joining us. Have yourselves a swell weekend, and we'll reconvene at some point, we hope, before these playoffs expire. Mind you, we're not even halfway through yet, which is really kind of scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you, boys.
Thanks, guys.
We'll come back and wrap it after these messages. We are back. We thank Darren Millard, Mike Zeisberger for joining us on a heated.
Yeah. You you brought something up there that kind of gave me a little bit of food for thought, and that was we're still not halfway through.
We're not halfway through.
You know, we got to get the Carolina series done. We got to get the Colorado St. Louis series done. Apparently, if everything goes full duration, they will give the Stanley Cup out on June the 30th, Bob. June the 30th.
Do they have to go four-game final?
No, that would be for 7. That would be for 7.
Oh, okay. So the latest.
The latest it'll be is June 30th. Yeah.
All right. And are they taking extra days off in the final?
I don't know. I would suspect they would, based on what
history, TV bastards,
the U.S. networks would like to do, as they've done. I mean, the NBA finals start next week, and they've got. I mean, I think they play one game over a 5-day period. So, by the way,
screw the fans who pay the bills, right?
Warriors are through, Bob. Warriors are through.
Well, you can't be shocked at that. I'm not.
Not even remotely.
I'm shocked they didn't win 4 straight over Dallas.
Well, they might win 4 straight over Boston or Miami if Miami comes back.
I'm thinking we're probably going to be talking a bit about Fernandez and maybe Oj Aliassime next week, too.
Okay,
this is a major, and the 2 young Canadians once again are in the hunt. We hope you have a nice weekend. For John Shannon, Bob McCowan. See ya.